bled and died for this vote. Let's rewind some time, better take notes. The right to vote wasn't every citizen's right, you know. So many ancestors had to die for 1965. To this day, we still have to fight for the rights for our lives. Is freedom really free? Seems to be so many strings. Let freedom ring. Let freedom ring.
There is absolutely power in your vote. Good evening to you, everybody, and welcome to The Conversation. I'm Kerry Charles.
And I'm Matt Barnes.
And I'm Darlene Hill. The conversation continues tonight. And count them, we are just 34 days from the most important election in our lifetime.
NBC4 wants to make sure you understand just how important your vote is. So keep your eye on the crawl at the bottom of your screen. It will update you throughout the show with these important dates and information to make sure your vote counts.
But before we get started, we want to thank our community partners at Urban One Radio for their support and Bounce TV Columbus for simulcasting tonight's episode of The Conversation.
And we began tonight with last night. It was a fiery one in Cleveland as President Donald Trump and Joe Biden face off in the first of 3 presidential debates. The 2 very different candidates clashing over everything from the pandemic to race in America. But the moment that has everyone talking about today is when the President of the United States refused to denounce white supremacy during a presidential debate.
Sure, are you prepared to specifically do it? I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it. Do you want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
who would you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud Boys. Stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem.
Well, I spoke with an expert on race this afternoon, and she says what Americans watched last night was a train wreck with a front row seat to how some, even people with power, view race in America. And she says if you're not hurt or offended by what you heard and what you witnessed, you could be part of the problem.
You know, it was just so disappointing that he wouldn't just out and out disavow the white supremacy and racism. You know, this is something that should be the basics of our nation's leader, to just simply call out and say that he does not support or condone white supremacy. And what we had was a kind of dog whistling and sidestep. And so for those who don't understand what dog whistling is, it's like, you say something, which is what's read on the nose, but then there's also a subtext that is there present as well that can also be heard by people within an in-group.
What do you say to the Republican pundits, political pundits, as well as some representatives are coming out today and saying President Trump misspoke? He didn't really mean that.
I think that he was given a couple of opportunities in a long period of time to really clearly state what he meant. And this is also not necessarily the first time that he's engaged in this kind of dog whistling.
Dr. Bowden used examples like the incident in Charlottesville, Virginia a couple of years ago when a protester was killed after a white supremacist deliberately drove his car into the crowd. And just last month in Kenosha, Wisconsin, a 17-year-old opened fire on protesters at a Black Lives Matter rally, and he claimed he was protecting the country.
And what's ultimately needed in these times is very, very clear, concise communication that is disavowing white supremacy, that's disavowing violence against Black and brown bodies. At some point, you have to look at yourself and say that you are also part of the problem. You are part of the problem that is forwarding institutional racism. Institutional racism is made possible by individuals coming together and just simply turning a blind eye to these things.
And if you spent 5 minutes watching it last night and you still feel like in America your vote doesn't count, what do you say to those non-believers of their power?
There's certainly been so many years of voter suppression and campaigns that's been meant to suppress votes. But you need to exercise the power that you have. People have fought and died for this right. You need to stand up and you need to go to the polls and you need to make your voice known.
Voting is not a panacea. It's a tool. It's a tool to exercise power in this moment. So we don't want to make the claim that voting will resolve all of this, because that's placing an undue burden on a political process that is faulty. But we do understand that if you don't vote, you concede power. And we don't want to do that.
Wise words are there. That is why it is so important to make sure your vote counts for the upcoming election. Here are some dates you need to be aware of. Monday, October 5th is the last day to get registered to vote. You can get that done online, by mail, or in person. And the following day, Tuesday, October 6th, early voting will begin in Ohio. Those deciding to vote early will have from October 6th through November 2nd to cast their ballot. And Tuesday, November 3rd, is Election Day.
1863, that's when Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation and freed the slaves. June 1865 is when some of the last slaves in the country received the news, which is why we celebrate Juneteenth. 100 years after that, and really not that long ago, a landmark piece of legislation banned racial discrimination in voting.
1965 and the Voting Rights Act is a critical moment because it ends the period, 100 years of the exclusion, efforts to completely exclude African Americans from the ballot box and the political process. But it also ushers in the period of voter suppression.
Dr. Hassan Kwame Jeffries knows a thing or two about the struggle for African Americans to access the right to vote. He teaches in the history department at OSU.
We can't become either complacent or self-congratulatory that some basic rules and regulations, the literacy test, is off the books, because we still know that not only are we dealing with legacy laws like felony disenfranchisement, but we're also dealing with new laws that disenfranchise and take the vote away from folks.
Which is why it's a problem when many people from all backgrounds don't vote.
That is disappointing, you know, especially knowing the history of how long people have fought for it. And gave their lives for us. The fact that black folk are able to vote now, that other groups are able to vote now, was the result of sacrifice, of time, effort, energy, and lives. And we should not take that for granted either. Every generation in the African American struggle for freedom, there are heroes and sheroes that did so much, building on the work of those who came before them and laying the groundwork for that work to continue to go forward.
Like John Lewis, who would go on to become a U.S. congressman.
Who put his body on the line in Selma, Alabama in 1965. And he did not stop there.
Fannie Lou Hamer,
a sharecropper in rural Mississippi.
The youngest of 20 children, became a prominent voice in the fight for civil and voting rights.
Really represents that tradition of ordinary folk, plain-spoken black folk.
During the 1964 Democratic National Convention, she shared a story of being brutally beaten in a jailhouse, arrested while taking part in an effort to register blacks to vote.
Who also put their lives on the line and will never get that farewell ceremony that John Lewis did. Will never, their names will not be said, echoed in the halls of Congress, but they were just as important. We have come a long way as a nation. That there's no doubt about that, but there's still a long way to go.
Dr. Jeffrey says voting is the first step to participating in the political process. The next, becoming politically active and engaged. He says not just to protect democracy, but to extend it.
In the 2016 presidential election, exit poll results showed 89% of black voters in Ohio voted for Hillary Clinton, but turnout was down across the country among African Americans. Black voter participation experienced its first decline since 2004, from 12.9% to 11.9%. I spoke with black leaders in Columbus, hoping to reverse that trend this year.
You may have 80% of black voters who are registered, and you may get 25–30% of them to vote. Is the ability to get them registered now and into an absentee ballot and a mail-in vote something that will strengthen that vote in 2020?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're spot on there. You know, black voters in particular are even more at a greater risk this year with COVID-19, with voter suppression tactics.
I spoke with City Councilwoman Sheila Favor and Council President Shannon Hardin on National Black Voter Day, a Kickstarter, if you will, to move from protest to action.
With the history of voting as it pertains to black folks and folks that look like Shayla and I, we've been up against suppression before. We've been up against and have seen our leaders like John Lewis literally give his blood on the Edmund Pettus Bridge for this very right. And so we're just pausing today to say that as Black voters, as Black churches, as Black communities, as folks that have gone to historically Black colleges and universities, that we must make a plan to vote.
Ohio Senator Herschel Craig has written editorials and is using every opportunity to now create urgency that voting isn't just a privilege, he says, but an obligation.
I've been in the Linden area. Was there last week, was there the week before. There are mothers, there are fathers, there are folks, just advocates, just parents caring about their children and the quality of life for their children.
Who tell you they will vote.
That voting is certainly a serious concern for those families.
And on college campuses like Otterbein, student leaders like Lindsay Payton voting for the first time are now creating a roadmap for others.
This is how you do it, and then they can go out and cast their vote and not just talk about their opinions, but actually try and make a difference.
And making a difference may have no greater window of opportunity than in the election of 2020.
I will venture to say that we will have the highest turnout of Black voters and the highest turnout of young voters in general than we've ever seen before, because we all are seeing what's happening in our country. We all know that change is necessary, and it's necessary now. We all understand the crossroads that we are at, and Black voters are going to show up. We're going to show out.
You know, no matter the election, it has ramifications on not just those of voting age, but those younger as well. I sat down with 4 Black teenagers who cannot vote in November's election, but that doesn't mean they aren't aware of how important voting is and how vital it is to stay informed of the issues and the candidates.
This is the first time that I'm really fully understanding the whole process and everything, and like knowing how big of a deal it is, because with President Obama, I was 6 years old when he came into office, and when he left I was 13, and then it was President Trump after that. So now I'm finally old enough to understand like what's going on.
I want to pay attention because I want to get ahead of my voice in the community, because everybody has a voice when you vote. When you vote, or if you don't vote, you're giving your voice up, or you're lacking your leisuring when it comes to that, and you're giving your voice to someone else. Like if something happens in the future with Donald Trump or Joe Biden, and you're like, oh man, well I would have voted for him, and something else happened, you don't have that chance anymore.
I try to go deeper and actually like pay attention to the unedited stuff, and like the campaigns I feel like are the best way, or the actual election itself is the best way to see like what each person says, like just off rip from whatever comes from their heart, instead of it going through the news and being able to be like retweak.
The importance of voting, how much has it been given to you from whether it's teachers or parents or mentors? How much have they talked to you guys about the importance of it and why it was fought for all these years?
My parents, they go like more in depth with it. Like they actually sit down and talk with me on how I feel on certain stuff. They show me certain stuff. Like they give me advice on not to like go with the first thing you hear or even what you're told.
I could always learn more, and I probably should have learned more, and it hasn't really been the main focus growing up. But I do know how important it is to vote, you know, because, I mean, our ancestors did fight for the right for us to vote and make our voices heard. A vote goes a long way, and even though you think your vote's not going to matter, it does.
What is the one issue that you see on TV or you know in your heart means the most to you?
This whole year has just been a lot of either discrimination, violence, killing, just anything, and it's mainly like publicized to the Black community, but there are also like immigrants from different countries or different races, just anything. I just feel like the discrimination against them, like there needs to be a change happening.
We need to figure out what the problem is, and we need somebody to come up with a solution that will help not just our race, but everyone come together as an equal society and to better our world, because this is not the way that it is supposed to be. We're not supposed to be killing each other.
I want to be able to walk down the street confidently with my clean J's on, with my chain on, you know, without thinking about looking around, see who's behind my back, everything like that. Like, I want to have that better confidence in our nation and us as a team, as a community, and as a state.
That's our future right there. They can't vote in November, but I sure wish they could. Thank you so much, kids. Well, it is important that everyone has a voice in this election. Adrienne Robbins caught up with a few people who are making it their mission for inner city voices, that they all can be heard in November.
There's a growing movement across the nation to get people registered and ready to vote in November. Here at A Cut Above the Rest, that's what Al Edmondson is doing, using his barbershop to get the message across. At A Cut Above the Rest on Columbus's east side, they're offering more than just a haircut. Owner Al Edmondson is offering people a chance to be heard this November, helping his customers and community register to vote.
I have some on my desk right now, about 10 of them. I stopped by the shop early this morning, and so I'm just getting very excited about this upcoming election, about people are getting out to vote.
Al has been working for months to get more people in his community registered and requesting their absentee ballots. He says many don't trust the process, but as a local business owner, he can bridge that gap.
I've been in business for over 30 years, so I have relationships with the mothers, the fathers. Now the kids are now able to vote. I watched them all grow up.
For the time that remains, Al says he's going to be working overtime to register people. He's also calling on everyone to volunteer as a poll worker this year.
We're going to make sure that Franklin County votes and our state votes.
So far, Al has registered more than 2,500 voters, and there's still time to register.
In places like the Caribbean island of Hispaniola, voting is treated as a holiday, something many Americans would like to see here. Kenya Ramirez spoke with a Latina woman about her experience voting in both places.
Here in Columbus, it surprises U.S. citizen Sandra Lopez to see a push to encourage people to vote.
I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic. Growing up, in the DR, election day and voting was so important.
Voting is a holiday in her hometown. She says people would be in line before 6 a.m. eager to cast their vote and get their fingerprint taken to show their proof to others. And moving here, she found some not choosing to vote odd.
Why wouldn't you go vote? Even to this day, I know people who are not registered to vote, and it's like, well, why?
So to help get more votes in this historic election year, she's taking part in a campaign called Be Heard through the Harmony Project that focuses on providing a platform for more diverse voices.
32 million Latinos are eligible to vote.
So as a Latina woman, she's making it her mission to target Latinos.
We are a young community. We often don't see ourselves on national TV, but we care about the same things that everyone is worried about. Voting is how we communicate what our concerns are to our elected officials.
And to encourage new Americans to make their voices heard.
New Americans are the promise of the American dream.
In Columbus, Kenia Ramirez.
All right, the American dream. Well, it turned into a nightmare for the family of Breonna Taylor, who was shot and killed while sleeping when police busted into the wrong apartment looking for drugs. Well, today, the Attorney General there in Kentucky was supposed to release the audio recordings from the grand jury, but it was delayed after a judge approved his request for a one-week extension to redact personal and identifiable information of witnesses, jurors, and private citizens. Now, this comes after a grand jury decided not to directly charge 3 police officers there in Louisville with killing Breonna Taylor.
And so much of the current political climate, especially the division and discord, stems from bias. Colleen Marshall joining us now. And Colleen, you talked to the authors of a new book who say we're all born biased, but we can reboot our brains.
Yeah, and they say we need to save our communities, our businesses, our country. Their book is called Intrinsic Inclusion, Rebooting Your Biased Brain. Vincent Brown and Dr. Janet Reed say even babies have a bias, that they naturally gravitate to those who look like them, going back centuries to a time when we all lived in tribes and relied on those who look like us for food and protection. And that often makes us suspicious of those who don't look like us.
If I had started the presentation with this hat on, you all would have loved whatever I said. See, I'm changing your behavior right now, because your mind already is thinking, I'm making a connection in that, and if I had dared start it with this hat, oh my goodness. So here's the point, folks. In less than 7 seconds, we make well over 11 impressions, and the key is, do we choose to act on those or not? Because a lot of those things you can't stop, but what you can do is choose.
Choose to be open and welcoming, to be curious about those not like you. Choose to pause.
Definitely when you see somebody who's different than you, the stereotypes may flow, the cringe may come, but if you just pause long enough, just for an instant, to think that there might be another possibility around who that person is, or what that person is doing, or whether they mean you harm, it makes all the difference in the world.
But historically, often tragically, those differences shaped behaviors.
What's happened, particularly with blacks in America, is a 400-year-plus scenario. It's not new.
So much so that he was numb to it.
I will tell you, when Mr. Floyd was murdered, honestly, my first reaction was not a reaction. It wasn't news. It wasn't until I really realized how it was impacting my sons that it really hit me, oh my goodness. My point is, we have adapted and adopted many different behaviors to cope.
The authors say we need to emulate people who are intrinsically inclusive. They are open to diversity. They question injustice. And they will be voting in November for people who respect opposing viewpoints.
Unfortunately, we have lost the ability to have a dialogue with people whose beliefs are different than our own. It's a debate. So it's a matter of my ways are better than yours, and if you espouse this, then I'm here to beat you down with my logic. We've lost the ability to hear.
Leaders, they say, must help heal the racial divide. Vincent Brown says Pew Research has been asking the same question since 1948. Is racism a priority in America? The peak for yes answers was the civil rights movement in the 60s. But it peaked again with the death of George Floyd.
But here's the scary part for me. It's already starting to come back down. So the reality is it a movement or is it a moment?
And he says it is up to all of us to make it a movement and not allow it to simply be a moment.
But you know, it gave me goosebumps when Vincent Brown sat there and said when George Floyd was killed, it wasn't news to him. He didn't react until he noticed how it impacted his children,
and I wondered
his
if that
sons.
was generational. If that's someone, you know, a little older who has lived through the civil rights movement.
Well, I was going to say, or have we gotten so used to seeing black men killed by the hands of police?
Yeah, I remember when it happened, I had to distance myself from it as best as I could until, because I was just leaving work in Atlanta to come here, so I had a bit of a break, and I tried to distance as much as I could. But before I really got into watching all of the videos.
And we all look at it from our own perspective. And I think, Darlene, I've told you this before. The thing that got me about that video was listening to him call for his mom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I think that we all look at it with our own perspective. But you're right, if you're used to it,
you get numb.
It's like, oh, there that is again.
And you keep going back to the 8 minutes and the 46 seconds. And I got to go back to your piece, Matt, with the young voters, the high school kids that are not of age to vote, but
so
they were
impressive.
so impressive.
They're listening, they are paying attention, and I think what I found interesting is just as interested as they are in the presidential race, they understand that these state races are just as important. These local races are just as important.
Those are sometimes, some would say, the most important.
They impact your daily life much more than the presidential race does.
You know, some high school kids, though, are old enough to vote. They are 18. It would be interesting for us maybe to find some of them.
Oh, absolutely.
And see what this is going to be like to have your first vote be this election.
This one.
And to hear one of the students talk about how she was 6 years old when then President Obama moved in on 1600 Pennsylvania, and now, you know, she's dealing with Trump. And just to hear what she had to say, the differences there.
Amidst everything that's happening in the world right now, too, and right here in our country.
Yeah, and it was so interesting. I think watching that debate last night, I know we were all going, what in the world happened? Who learned what? What did you learn from it? And it's so interesting because you have these young people, this group, they're so impressionable. They want to get involved in this. And last night, from the Republican and the Democratic side, what did they get out of it? What did the kids get out of it?
No one won. That's why I kept saying it was a sad day for America, because the young people who want to get involved in the political process, this is what makes you not want to.
And remember when you were in high school, when something like this would happen on the national stage, your teacher would talk to you about, well, now, make sure you watch the debate tonight. I was watching the Watergate hearings, but make sure you watch the debate, and we'll talk about it in class. What did those teachers say today about what they
I mean, did
saw
you even want to be that
last night?
teacher to bring up the conversation today? I mean, I think we all had a difficult time watching it, no matter what side of the aisle you fall on. And then I had a conversation with my son last night, and he said, "See why I don't want to get involved in this process?" And I'm like, I had to beg him. I'm like, don't you dare turn your back on your power right now, because we have to realize it's the process. Forget about the candidates. I mean, you've got to go with what your heart is telling you.
Yeah, no matter who you're voting for, vote.
Yes.
You have to vote. So many people lost their lives for people of color, for women, for black women. And it's critical, just like Dr. Jeffries was saying earlier, the voting, that's the beginning. We have to stay involved and politically engaged.
Yeah, we go back to the, this a moment or is this a movement? We're going to find out here very soon. Do people continue to stay active politically here even after the election? Is this all just getting fired up for November, or does this carry through? Because racism is going away November 3rd.
Well, James Baldwin said hope is invented every single day. So I'm going to bank on those protesters that are out there and believe that this is a movement. This is not just something that is here today, gone tomorrow. I'm going to bet on the hope.
Yeah, and keep the conversation going.
Absolutely. People need to continue to keep talking.
It's so important to do.
Well, this was fun. It always is. It always is.
Always. And I love it that we keep the conversation going, because while we have this conversation in our studio, we hear from so many people out there in Central Ohio that say they have the conversation at work and at home with their friends.
Absolutely. And you got to get out there and vote, everyone. That's the most important thing. The last thing we do want to leave you with is to make sure you are registered to vote. It only takes about 5 minutes. You have until Monday, October 5th. All the information you need, you can find it on NBC4i.com. Make sure you vote.
Also, help us continue the conversation. Send us your thoughts, your questions to theconversation@WCMH.com. We thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night.
As you listen to the stories of the people who give this country its foundation, will you be ready to stand as a non-pandering ally as we continue the conversation?